Ready to go?
We are ready to go. Yep.
Hey, give me a gavel. Okay, it being 4 o'clock, we'll call to order the regular meeting of the West Basin Municipal Water District Engineering and Operations Committee and a special meeting of the Board of Directors. We'll have a determination of quorum, Mr. General Manager.
Thank you, Chair Alvarez. So we'll call roll, starting with yourself, Director Alvarez,
Here.
Director Williams,
Here.
Director Deere, Director Gray, Director Houston. So it appears we have 2 members present.
So we have the committee present, but we don't have the quorum for the board.
It appears we do not have a quorum for the board.
Okay. Are there any public comments?
No, we don't have any.
No public comments, Chair.
Okay. Then we do have, so would you like to
Introduce that?
introduce that, Mr. General Manager?
I would like to introduce that, and I'm very pleased to introduce this presentation of our update to the website and kind of an update to the feature of doing business with West Basin. And so I'm happy to have our board secretary and admin manager, Julie Frazier Matthews, to give this presentation, which I think is a really nice change that may be somewhat responsive to some of the comments that we heard in prior meetings. And I think more importantly, it helps us with making it easier for our vendors to understand what the opportunities of doing business with the district are and to be able to more readily engage those opportunities. And so I hope that you will be pleased with the demonstration. It'll only take us a few minutes to show it and then answer any questions that you may have. So please, Julie.
Thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and share the screen here. So if you look on your monitor, and I've taken it all the way back to the to Google. So if you click on West Basin Municipal Water District.
I'm still seeing the action calendar.
Let me see if hold on, let me hit share. Yeah. Can you see it now?
Yes.
There we go. So from Google, I typed in westbasin.org and you'll see you've hit our home page here. So we have a number of areas where you can see doing business with West Basin. Here in this little right-hand block, you'll see doing business with West Basin. We also have, if you go to About Us in this top ribbon, you go down here where it says doing business with West Basin at this location. And then if you also scroll all the way to the bottom here in our quick links, you'll see that we also have About West Basin, doing business with West Basin. So there's 3 different points of where the public can have access to doing business with West Basin. So if you click on any one of those, it will take you to this page here of doing business with West Basin. It gives you a little overview of how we procure goods and services. You'll also see the active solicitations that's right below that under bidding opportunities. Keep in mind that these bidding opportunities are the ones that are solicitations that are $50,000 or above. So if you look here at the little link that I'm circling, if you click on that, it will take you to our active solicitations. Right now, we only have 1 in the queue. And if you click on this, it has the deadline, the publication date. You click on it and it will give you the information of how to actually submit and the date lines, any questions that you may have, and then here are the different list of placeholders. So with that, again, it's a very easy way to navigate. We hope that we have satisfied the request for the needed improvements, but we'll continue to work on improving the website if there's additional, concerns or comments that the board may have. I want to give kudos to Amy and her team, as well as our IT team that will work actively and collectively together to put this up on the webpage. And I also have Isaiah on the line in case there's some technical questions, or Amy, if you have additional questions. But at this point, that's the demonstration.
Okay, and I'll just add, if we may navigate back to the maybe the active solicitations feature. So that's actually a new feature that's been added to this particular page. And you can actually see the list of procurements that are listed, in this case, just the one, actuarial services. But we do, although the opportunities are earmarked for 50,000 and above, which are the formal solicitations that would go to the board for consideration of approval. My intention is to extend the GM approved opportunities onto this site as well. And so that way we can increase the engagement with our vendor community on more of the opportunities, although the solicitations that are below 10,000, we would continue to handle those in the same manner that we do now, which would not entail this particular system. But the intention is to broaden and the access to more of our bidding opportunities, not fewer. The other idea that I want to implement is to have a look-ahead procurement schedule where we would post maybe a spreadsheet that says, here are the upcoming procurements over the next period, whether that's a 3-month period or a 6-month period, or if we're able to look as far as 12 months out. So that way the vendor community can anticipate, the type of opportunities that are coming up, and they can start to prepare themselves for those opportunities. So that's all I'll have to add to. One more thing. I am very interested in us doing vendor fairs as well in partnership with other agencies. And so I'm speaking with our manager of public information, Amy. We've talked about those ideas as well. And so it's a continuous improvement process that we're looking at.
Okay, thank you. Director Williams, do you have any questions, comments?
Very good. I'm satisfied.
I think that this is a really nice feature. It is consistent with some of the discussions we've had in the past about trying to be a little bit more friendly in terms of encouraging local vendors to participate in the business opportunities that the district does have to offer. The idea of a 3-month look ahead is probably a good idea. A lot of times people can then say, yeah, there's nothing there today, but maybe I need to check back. These are the opportunities. I'm not quite sure either it's worth the effort, but 3 months is probably
Sufficient.
kind of the sweet spot. Because quarterly people are going to be looking to refresh where things are, et cetera. Even if you identify something and you shift it back, that would be fine. So that's a wonderful additional feature that you suggested, and then the other thing that I think is also beneficial that you talked about adding is the smaller amounts, not just the larger $50,000 plus that would be board approved, but that range between 10 and 50,000. I think we probably have quite a few smaller contracts that smaller vendors would avail themselves of, and that would be really worthwhile. So I did have one other comment, and that is when you do click on that and you go to the opportunity, it still refers you to the MERS cell, which is fine if we have a contractual obligation with that service provider. But would it also be possible if you would just be able to download a PDF of the RFP directly from the website? If you go to the Mercell site, it goes through quite a few steps to get the information, it breaks it all up, and it's just easier. Most of the time, these RFPs are one document, and maybe a large document, but they should be able to just click on the document and download it. We said, we have a contractual obligation with Marcel to still post until that contract's up, and I don't know. That's fine, but let's just make it easier also and just have, you can click on the site, you can go to Marcel, or you can just click right there, download the PDF with the RFP, or whatever procurement advertising we have available.
I think that's something that we could take back and look at.
Okay,
And,
shouldn't be all that hard. You guys
yeah.
have done a great job so far, so adding that additional feature seems like it'd be pretty straightforward.
right.
And so with respect to Marcel, what is our arrangement with them?
Perhaps if we have Isaiah on the line, he can maybe respond to that.
Isaiah, are you there?
Yes, I am. However, that question will have to be directed toward Margaret. That's a direct engagement between finance and Marcel.
Oh, okay, this is
But
procurement, not an IT item. Okay, so we don't have, is Margaret on the line?
Yeah.
Okay,
Margaret, are you there?
Either that or you can come back and maybe provide that information. I'd like to know what that is. And maybe we can also, whenever that agreement, it's got to have some term on it, look at some other e-bid sites that are more local.
okay, will do.
Okay, so with that, let's move on to the action calendar.
Okay, and so we have our first action calendar item, which is the operational technical support services contract for 2022 through 24. And you may recall a presentation here in the committee about the value-added services that we were able to realize as a result of this particular service. And so we are now here today before you, having completed the RFP process and with a recommendation to be presented by Susanna Lee, our operations engineer, senior operations engineer. Susanna, please.
Thank you, Greg, and good afternoon, directors. It's great. Just a quick recap. Staff came to the board in June and presented and provided an overview of what this contract is, the functions and the benefits to the operations departments, as well as the recycling water operations. So staff here is, as Greg mentioned, is to present a station for award for the operation technical support services contract. In June, we gave an overview of what this contract, the purpose, and what it is. And so as a recap, I just want to remind the board, like West Basin at any given moment, we utilize about $11 million worth of membranes to help to produce all the advanced treated water at our facilities. And operations staff have been able to rely on the industry expert to as an extension of staff to provide the important technical expertise and the third-party independent condition performance monitoring and evaluations of all the membrane systems. And yes, in 2013, we extended the scope of services to include other treatment processes such as disinfectant tertiary, solids handling and whatnot as system aging. And so we need a lot more attention on those as well. But all in all, this contract really is to provide, to help us to achieve West Basin's main mission to provide a safe and reliable supply of high quality water to the communities we serve. So as presented in June, the current contract is set to expire in September and is critical for operations that new contracts be in place. And for the board's information, prior to the release of the RFP, West Basin engineering and operations staff did reach out to different engineering and management firms to discuss the upcoming opportunities with West Basins, which includes this solicitations. So many of the consulting firms at that time did express the interest in working with West Basins and particularly with this technical support contract. So West Basin issued the RFP on May 26, 2022 for a 2-year term and not to exceed contract limit of $600,000 based on historical and near-term anticipated needs. The RFP was transmitted to 841 companies and 5 companies opted to participate. And West Basin received 1 proposal on June 23rd, 2022. West Basin procurement and operations staff reached out to the firms who participated in the RFP, yet did not submit the proposal.
I probably can. I'll be honest with you though, I have no clue how that works yet. I haven't done it, but let me find out.
Better. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. And that brief interruption was brought to you by.
Let me continue. So West Basin procurement and operations staff reach out to the firms that actually did participate in the RFP process, but did not submit the proposals, as well as we did just hold several companies that did not participate at all, and just solicit information and comments on why they did not propose. So most of the firms that we did reach out, large and small, expressed that they were interested in the work. However, due to the limited available resources they could not bid and commit to the project at this time. And other companies cited that there's a lack of expertise in supporting some of the water treatment processes, and others are just not interested at this moment. So Hazen and Sawyer's proposals was evaluated for the completeness as well as the quality of the proposals and the project approach and qualifications of team members and their understanding of the scope of work. West Basin staff also reached out to the references provided, and all the references provided a positive recommendations and how the quality of work that they very happy with Hazen's past performance. So West Basin staff had a team of evaluator and reviewed the bids for all the criteria I mentioned, and we provided a score of 88.6. Based on the evaluations and the selection process, staff is here to recommend the award of the contract to Hazen and Sawyer, which is teaming with SPI to provide the extensive and specialized support services that are requested in the RFP. On page 4 of the memo, lists some of the specific reasons that the evaluation team have put together, and you can read that. With that, I will read the recommendation that the board authorize the general manager to enter into a two-year agreement with Hazen and Sawyer for the operational technical support services for a not to exceed contract amount of $600,000. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Director Williams?
Yeah, it's, just a quick question. I noticed that this firm has done a lot of work for West Basin. I think when I came on board here back in 2015, 14, something like that, I think they had a contract then. And in every subsequent year, they had a contract with us, I believe. I don't know for sure. But can you check and see how much money have they made off of us? Have they made $1 million in fees from us over the years? When you add it up?
This contract?
No, total.
Total?
Yeah, for the work that they've done with us, because they've done an awful lot of work. Okay. So, and then I'd like to know who was close to them And then the people who have not done any work for us, but they are equally as qualified as this firm, how much work have they done? That's all. Just, that shouldn't stop anything, I don't believe.
Yeah, we'll gather that information and
So,
bring that back to
so
the
the
committee.
request is, what is the aggregate fee that has been paid to Hazen and Sawyer from the inception of when they began doing work for West Basin? Not the last year, not the last 2 years, but from the inception of the time they have begun to do work for West Basin. Okay?
And the reason for this, don't get me wrong here, is that if a firm has been doing a lot of work for a company for a long time, it scares off smaller guys who would like an opportunity, even the medium-sized guys, you know. I mean, 'cause if you look around, it's the same guys, the same firms, over and over and over again in this industry that get the work. That's all. So we just want to check and see.
And I think I understood two other questions that you were asking. One is who is close to them?
Yeah.
And just to clarify, the firm of interest is Hazen Sawyer, not SPI.
No.
SPI is the sub,
Yeah.
Hazen Sawyer is the prime,
So I'm looking at the prime.
right, and specifically Hazen Sawyer.
For this,
If I could clarify, or if you could clarify, your follow-up question was, after Hazen and Sawyer, other
who else were the other firms?
firms. that-
So who is close to them in terms of the second?
Yeah. Done a lot of work for us.
Corolla, like Tetra Tech. We have a handful of firms that we repeatedly use.
Okay, so we're looking at if there's a dollar amount that Hazen has,
And then-
who else is in that same ballpark in terms of dollar amount? I'm just trying to understand the question.
When you're trying to understand and you're making it more complicated than it needs to be.
Here it is. Let's say we have 10 firms that repeatedly, we see all the time, do all the work for West Basin. So what is the aggregate amount for each one of those firms that have been paid in fees?
That's all. It's easy.
Okay.
That's
Any other
it.
questions?
That's all I have for now.
I have a follow-up question. To try to get this information out, you stated, Susanna, and it's in the staff report, that the RFP was transmitted to 841 companies. And 5 companies opted to participate. So 841 companies, can you provide a list of the 841 companies that are referenced here?
Gather that from procurement, yes.
I'm sorry?
We'll gather that information from procurement.
Okay, it says 841 companies. I would like a list of the 841 companies. And then the 5 companies that opted to participate. What are? Do you know those? Because that's only 5. So who did you talk to?
We have AKM, HDR, Black and Beach, Hazen and Sawyer, and I believe SBI was listed as one of them, but I need to confirm if that's.
All right, so you said SPI was also one of them, and SPI. Makes sense that SPI would team up with Hazen and Sawyer. Okay. So, yeah, if you guys can provide that additional information, it would be much appreciated. I understand that Hazen and Sawyer and SPI bring some very critical knowledge both about the way that the district systems operate and are designed, as well as very specialized, technical, knowledge about, membranes, and that they would be very beneficial for us. In one way, I think that the use of Hazen and Sawyer, which I have no problems with, like I said, I value their opinion, and I think that them in combination with SPI are probably one of the best groups that you can retain for looking at membranes and some of the technology that we'll need to have evaluated. But it seems like maybe that this is the type of consultant that we want to retain, or there is a tendency to want to retain on a continuous basis for the reasons that I said, that they're very knowledgeable, not only about the district's facilities, but also the technical capabilities that they bring to the table. And if that is the case, then maybe we should identify that there is a preference for at least a very specialized service to go with a certain type of a firm. And we may not need to go through this manipulation of the process if we're going to end up with the same consultant over and over again. Let's just make a determination, and people will change, their capabilities over time will change. But let's just be a little bit more straightforward about the process. Okay, with that, I will move.
I couldn't hear you. I missed a lot of that.
I'm not going to repeat. And I'm not going to yell. I am going to go ahead and suggest that we do move this forward per the recommendation that the board authorize the general manager to enter into a 2-year agreement with Hazen and Sawyer for operational technical support services for not to exceed contract amount of $600,000, and hopefully you will only use a small portion of that amount. So.
I concur.
Concurrence?
I concur. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that support. And we will
If and
follow up.
only if we get the information that we're.
Yes,
We'll get it.
we do want the information.
So with that, would the information be due at the time of the board
No,
presentation?
no, just
No, sir,
Don't-
like tomorrow. No,
Okay.
get it to us.
We will get that information to
like
you.
as soon as you can. It
As
shouldn't
soon
be
as
that
we-
hard.
it
It's
shouldn't
all
be that hard.
referenced in the staff reports, but theoretically, it's sitting in a file.
Yes. Understood, and will do.
All right, so moving on to the next item.
Okay.
The general manager, go ahead.
Yes, so we have a recommendation for award of our electrical system assessment services. And I'm happy to introduce Jason Kung, our operations analyst, who is here to present and to provide staff recommendations. Jason, please.
Thanks, Greg. And good afternoon, directors. As you all are aware, our facilities contain many high voltage critical assets, such as motor control centers, switchgear, and ancillary electrical equipment necessary for operation. Beyond the safety requirements necessary for working around these assets, our insurance carrier requires that an electrical safety program exist with the objective of ensuring the safety of both employees and contractors working on or near high voltage equipment. This applies for all of our facilities, including our distribution booster pump stations in Carson and Torrance, as well as our secondary effluent pump station at the Hyperion Treatment Plant. In order to comply with this electrical safety program, West Basin performs an electrical system assessment, which includes an arc flash analysis and proper labeling of West Basin's electrical equipment. The arc flash analysis will identify methods to reduce harmful electrical short circuit faults and potential exposures to arc flash explosion hazards. We are required to update this analysis every 5 years, and the last analysis was conducted in 2017. Staff issued a request for proposals on May 27th on our online bid system, Vercel, for the update, which includes in which 10 vendors opened the solicitation. The mandatory virtual pre-proposal conference was conducted on June 9th, in which 6 vendors attended, and on June 23rd, 4 proposals were received. Excuse me. A summary of the final evaluation scores and rankings are provided in Table 1 on page 63, I believe, of your packet, and a detailed breakdown of the evaluation results is provided as attachment A on page 65 of your packet. Representatives from West Basin's Operations Department and West Basin's contract operator, Veolia, participated in the evaluation of the proposals. As part of the selection process, West Basin and Veolia staff evaluated each vendor's technical approach as well as the professional qualifications of key personnel. In addition, references were contacted to verify quality of past as well as ongoing work, as other agencies also must perform this update on a rotating basis. Furthermore, staff evaluated the option to not move forward with conducting an updated electrical system assessment. And this would put us out of compliance with our insurance carrier as well as out of compliance with OSHA regulations. Based on the alternatives available, staff would like to present the following recommendation for board consideration, which is that the board authorize the general manager to enter into an agreement with P2S Inc. for the procurement of electrical system assessment services for $88,100 with a 10% contingency for a total not to exceed amount of $96,910. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have at this time.
Thank you. Director Williams, any questions?
Oh, just a question to the general manager. In your opinion, is this a fair price?
I believe it is a fair price. We have a competitive process with 4 responding companies. And so we've evaluated them. And I believe we are recommending award. And I'd have to ask Jason if the recommended award is to the lowest price of the 4 responding, although we're not obligated to go to the lowest price because it's an RFP. But I'm seeing the nod of yes.
So the answer to the question is, yes, that is a fair price.
Yes.
Yeah, proof, because you're believing what he's telling you, right?
I believe what my team says.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, on this one, just to kind of consistency in these staff reports, we see that we had 6 vendors that actually were actively pursuing the proposal and interested in providing the service. Do we know how many actually, how many companies it was transmitted to?
Absolutely. It was 830 vendors.
830.
That's,
I was going to say, it was probably very similar to the last number. Thank you. Okay, so you guys went through and you did your evaluation. This is professional services, so we do not have to award on
Oh, I
the
understand.
the lowest price, nor should we for professional services. We should evaluate them on their professional competence and then proceed, even though if their costs are way astronomical, at some point, that does become an issue. But otherwise, it's a very specific set of services, and it's for the ARC study, so get it. I would go ahead and move that we recommend to the board that the general manager enter into an agreement with P2S Inc. for the procurement electrical system assessment services for $88,100 with a 10% contingency for a total not to exceed amount of $96,910.
I concur.
Williams, are you in agreement?
I concur.
Okay.
So
Well,
then we'll move on to the next item on
Thank-
today's action calendar.
Indeed. And thank you for the support of item 5B. Item 5C, amendment to the agreement for the sale of the Brewer desalter extraction well. And so I will brief the board on this particular item, which I understand this is a very important transaction that the board is very interested in completing in a, maybe in a expeditious manner. And so we've identified that there were some considerations that we needed to address with the sale of our well to the Water Replenishment District. And that was to ensure that the well operates in an acceptable manner to the Water Replenishment District as a part of this transfer and sale. And so our team has evaluated the well pump and motor, and we found that the motor is functioning, but we still need to evaluate the pump itself. And so that work is being orchestrated right now by the operations team and by, actually, I'm sorry, by Barkev and the engineering team. But in the meantime, we've reached an agreement with WRD to amend the agreement to allow for us to do this work while also receiving partial payment for the sale of this well. And so the operative language here is to receive a $1 billion payment of the 1.5 while we continue to work on making sure that this well functions properly. And when we're able to fully demonstrate the proper functioning of the well, WRD would then release the remaining payment, $500,000, and that would actually effectively complete the transfer and the purchase of the property. So with that said, we have amended the agreement to that effect. The agreement did indicate that the sale was contingent on an as-is condition, but because of this nuance that we're now introducing into the agreement, we have amended the language to remove that reference to the as-is component of the transaction. And I believe that essentially is the substance of the change that we're making with the amendment. And so we have the original agreement in front of you as a part of the board package, starting on page 69. And then we have the amended language, which is provided to you on page 76. And so you can see the very abbreviated language that entails the amendment. And so with that in mind, let me read the recommendation. And so our recommendation is that the board authorize the general manager to execute an amendment to the agreement for the purchase and sale of Brewer desalter extraction well. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Just quickly, if I can. Who's actually doing the mechanical work? Is that California?
Cal
Water?
No, we're in the process of hiring a vendor to pull the pump. And we have a low bid from, I believe it's Best Drilling. And so once they pull the pump, they will potentially do an assessment, and we're still discussing the scope of that service. Once they do that inspection, we'll know what the scope of the repairs need to be. We're talking about the pump intake that's downhole. And so they have to pull the pump out and take a look at it. And because of our public procurement regulations, we'll need to understand what that repair scope is and then put out a separate contract and procure services for the repair. And so we'll bring on that vendor, and then they'll do that work. And then we will then have the well, the pump and motor put back into the wellhole. And then we'll be able to test it, demonstrate that everything functions properly. And then that should satisfy WRD's interests, and they should be able to release payment soon thereafter.
So how long do you think this is going to take?
I'll have to ask our executive manager of engineering and operations to respond to that part of the question.
Well, I think we received proposals for the poll. I think we just need to do the paperwork for that. I would assume we'd need a few weeks to do the assessment, maybe 2 to 3 weeks. And then beyond that, take that assessment like Greg mentioned and develop a scope. So I'm guessing maybe another month or so, 1 to 2 months to put out the bid and get somebody on board to do the repair and testing on the remaining type of work. So overall, I think 3 to 4 months is a good assessment, Orlando.
Yeah.
3 to 4 months until maybe the well is tested and it's proven that it's okay, and we give a notification to WRD.
Okay, is that okay? You believe that's?
If we could do it faster, I certainly would like for us to do it faster, and I'm sure my team will work judiciously towards a faster process if we can do so.
Okay. Very good, thank you.
So on this one, The well's pump has been pulled already?
Not yet.
So when we pull the well pump, what exactly are we going to assess?
So my understanding is that we're going to be evaluating probably actually, if I can ask Jason to kind of.
Yeah, sure. It's a great question. So after we pull the pump, we'll be looking at specifically the bowl assembly, especially the impellers as well, and the clearance issues that might be there with some of the bushings in place. So that's kind of our focus, is right there on the bottom, about like 300 to 400 feet down.
Okay, so you're gonna pull the pump, it's gonna be lying on the ground or somewhere, and you're gonna be looking at the bowls primarily. Is that what, a correct interpretation of what you said?
Correct.
Okay, and that's gonna take 3 to 4 months?
No,
No.
no, 3 to 4 months that I mentioned includes the assessment, the rebidding of the repair work, the testing of the well. And the testing of the well includes putting in the necessary piping, discharge to waste. That's the 3 to 4 months. So it's one contract, assessment, second contract, completion of the work.
The the pump's already been pulled, huh? We
It's still in the hole.
It's not pulled, no.
Yeah, we're going to be bringing
So it's
on.
not pulled, and the motor's still on there, and so we could run a pump test right now and ensure that the well is working properly.
No, we cannot do
Yeah.
the test. Jason, go ahead.
So that's when we kind of realized there was an issue with the pump in our initial test to do a drawdown test for WRD at the early stages of the agreement. And that's when we noticed there's an issue with the pump causing an overcurrent error on the soft starter. So it indicated that there was some dragging on the pump side.
So if you bypass the soft starter, because you're not, and you just turn on the pump motor, you can't get that well pump to work.
Right, so instead what we did was decouple the pump and the motor and ran them separately. So just the motor on its own, we did not have any errors that came up on the soft starter, which indicated that our issue is the pump. So that it might be dragging, or there's some impedance on the rotation, which is causing pulling us a little bit more current than it should.
I think you mentioned in a conversation we had that there were some shavings that were coming out of the discharge.
That's right. So in our sand tester, we noticed metallic shavings that seemed to be gold in color. We did not strike gold, but it was probably the bronze shavings that are coming off from the bushings.
It just seems that 4 months to basically pull the pump, look at it, and repair the bowls, or even replace the bowls, and reinstall the pump. It's an awful long time.
And test it.
I think that maybe you all should, or should maybe try to do that a little bit sooner. On the other issue not on the other issue, let me bring up another issue, and that is contractually. Right now, the agreement that we have with them was that they were buying this as is. And we are gonna remove the as is provision. So why would we do that?
Why would we remove the as-is provision?
Since they've already signed an agreement to purchase the pump or the well with the pump and motor as is.
And the simple answer to that question is the discussion I had with the general manager of Water Replenishment District indicated, that the purchase was with the understanding that we have a properly functioning pump and motor. And so with that being said, I also understand that we provided a report that indicates that the pump operates in a certain manner. I think it was a 2019 report. And so it seems that we represented to WRD that it was a properly functioning well. However, we have knowledge that it doesn't operate consistently. And so there seems to me that there's a disconnect between what we represented in the 2019 report and what is actually occurring with the well. And so respecting the expectations of the, our partner, WRD, our recommendation, my recommendation is that we make it right, that we make sure that the pump and motor is functioning as we represented in the 2019 report, and provide them with a facility that they expect.
Okay. I think I feel more comfortable if we go back to the as-is language and recognize, maybe modify that language, that we might want to consider some negotiations with WRD to say as is, subject to, and I think at this point, everybody meaning WRD and the district has some understanding what the intent of the repairs are. We're not giving them a brand new pump. And so to remove the as is, I think is not a wise business decision. So maybe we can revisit it and negotiate this a little bit further. And that would be my recommendation.
I kind of concur with Director Alvarez there, because as is as is. And whatever it is, you buy it. And if it needs to be fixed, then you fix it after you've taken possession of it. So I agree that as is as is.
Okay, and I think I've heard two comments, as is, period, or as is, subject to certain conditions of the repair.
Well, I am not that familiar with the process of fixing a well. All I understand as is. Okay, so if you believe that we should do something as is, and if you think that's the best way to go, I could kind of go with that, but it's got to be as is.
My preference, Director Williams, is like yours, to just say, we've been around this now. This should have been something that should have been completed last year, and it just never ends. And they did sign an agreement as is, but I'm willing to move down the road just to get this thing finished, and work out some language in between. But my preference is, as Director Williams, it's as is. You signed an agreement. So if that's the preference.
I'm looking to you professionals to, what did we do? Did we as is? And did they agree to that the first time around? And now you're asking us to amend it so that we can fix it to as is fixed. I don't know. But
okay, well,
Let's just say, I think the direction is take it back and do further negotiations with WRD to get them to pay what they agreed to pay for the agreement.
water business is really tricky.
It's insidious.
okay, understood. Thank you for the feedback. All right.
Okay, so moving on to the information calendar, our monthly operations update, Mr. General Manager.
Yes, so we have our monthly operations update with presentations by Susanna Lee, Jamie Malpede, and Frank Fuchs. And so please, team, proceed.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Greg, again, for introducing this. If you can turn to the next slide. So we'll begin with a report on the influent water quality coming in from Hyperion. For the most part, we have been receiving a lot improve water quality from Hyperion. We have stable water quality at this point. Our average NTU for the month of July, yes, it was around 12 to 13. And there are still little bumps here and there, as you can see toward the end of July. So we are hopeful that we're moving toward the right directions, and that has also improved our satellite facility water quality as well. Moving to the next slide, please. So that's influent water quality. The next slide on page 90 is the total suspended solids coming into the plant. As you can see, that is also decreased. For June, it was close to 30 parts per million. For July, the average has come down to 20 parts per million. And as you can see, before the Hyperion upset, is averaging between 17 to 18. So what this means to operation is that we have less solids, we use less ferric chloride, less chemical, and we produce better quality for the satellite. So that has some consequential effects downstream to our operations. So we're happy, and with that, we're moving forward with membrane replacement. We're able to catch up with some of the cleaning with our membrane systems. So all in all, we're getting ready and trying to ramp up barrier production in the coming months. And I think my last slide, the next slide is monthly operations. There's some maintenance activities. As I mentioned, we're starting to replace membranes, and but this is at JMM. We replaced 1 to 2 trains now. Like now, as of August, we replaced train 1 plus train 4 that was replaced back in July. So that will improve and the water quality at that plant. And you've been hearing a lot on the solids dewatering filter presses, and I believe engineering will be coming to you to update you on some of the needed work. And this is the picture shown is just some inspection and repair work that was done in July. So with that, I will pass it to Jane.
Thank you, Susanna. And good afternoon. If I could have the next slide, please. These are our monthly environmental compliance activities for July. We submitted the barrier log reduction value report. That goes to the Department of Drinking Water and the regional board. We turned in our industrial wastewater self-monitoring reports for our facilities that discharge to the sewer system. We had an unannounced annual inspection by inspectors from LA County Sanitation District at Edward C. Little. Our annual stormwater report was due in for Carson. We turned that in. And we are officially ended our public notification period for Carson for both the AQMD permits. So we were just recently issued those. So we can go forward with using the generator and officially our biofilter. The compliance samples that we took in July totaled 422 with an annual average so far of 5,129. We are having some issues with one of our commercial lab vendors, and we will be giving a majority of the analyses to the other vendor. So we might have some changes into the contracts in the future. Next slide, please. Next slide. We received a notice of violation from the Regional Water Quality Control Board. We received it on June 13th, so this slide's a little old. but this was for a sample that was taken back in January 20th, 2021. This was for oil and grease. We violated both average weekly and average monthly limits, permit limits. An extensive investigation was done, and we could not conclude why this sample occurred. We looked at sampling procedures. We looked at laboratory error. We looked at accidental discharge. We could not come up with a conclusive reason why this would happen. So with that, we decided to accept the conditional resolution that the regional board approached us with, and that would be to pay a fine of $6,000. We have a 30-day, we're in the middle of a 30-day waiting period, which ends at the end of this month. And at that point, they will issue us the official administrative fine for us to pay. And that concludes my portion. I'll turn it over to Frank.
Okay, Frank, before you
Yes.
start. I have a couple of questions. So how often does LA County Sand do unannounced inspections?
They're supposed to do them every year. With COVID, they kind of took a step back. So this is our first in-person inspection that I've witnessed since I've been here. So the last couple of years was the first time.
On the notice of violation, so the actual violation was January of 21,
Yes, they're
and
very behind.
we received a notice of violation in June of 22.
Correct.
How does that happen?
I can tell you that they have a compliance staff, they go through everyone's. They used to be 3-year, we got violations in the past, and they'd be 3 or 4 years old, they don't have a statute of limitations. But it's not uncommon for them to not get, especially with the non-online systems, to not issue something for anywhere from 18 months to 24 months.
So we're just at the mercy of,
So they just have staff that sits there, we submit reports, give them information, then at some point they'll review that, and they'll say, aha, you have a violation, and then we need some money, so we'll assess $6,000 in this case.
Well, it's our responsibility to report if we're in violation in our quarterly and annual reports. So we did notify them that we did find a violation. It has taken them this long to get around to issuing that action to us initially.
We do report, give them the information,
Yes.
they don't act on it at the time, so you think, oh, we're okay, it's not that bad.
Silence.
A year and a half later, they come.
Well, I think we prepared for it. We knew that this was coming. That's why we did an extensive violation at the time. We contacted our contract lab, we went through our laboratory procedures, looked at the sample point, tried to determine as much as we could, as soon as we could, because we knew that a year from now, we probably wouldn't remember. So we did write an incident report on it. So we were prepared for it. We knew this was coming, and unfortunately, it came.
And then they just proposed, they basically sent the letter saying, notice of violation, blah, 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 and it can be resolved for $6,000.
My understanding is that the $6,000 is kind of a pretty minor
Correct.
fee or penalty.
This was a minor penalty. You're
Yeah, because if they were to assess it over the volume of water that's been discharged, it could have been substantially greater.
correct. And this equates to $3,000 for two permit violations because there are multiple limits associated with this. We exceeded both the weekly and the monthly, average weekly and average monthly. They also presented, there's also a program that would, if we wanted to contribute, it would have been a lot more if we wanted to, but we decided to go. This was the most economical way and the most efficient way to resolve this.
I'll add in there to that point that Greg made as well, that the they have a mandatory minimum penalty of $2,500. In theory, they could fine you for each day until your next sample where you could not prove you weren't out of it. So they have that, fair or not fair, they have that leverage. So I say that because they use that for cooperative agencies, cooperative companies, they kind of, as they call them. So I guess to say if they wanted to, they could levy more. And that's where your relationship and they trust that you own up to things. For example, if you had not called it out in your report and they find it, they will fine you a higher amount. So it's supposed to make it fair when they have these mandatory minimum penalties, but there still is a little amount of subjectivity.
Well, we have no choice. We've paid it already, right?
No, we'll be receiving the fine after the 30-day notification, which ends August 30th.
Oh, okay.
So soon.
Pay him.
Okay, all right, go ahead, next section.
Next slide. This is our monthly potable water customer service update for July. I wanted to highlight two items. For WB, we're starting with the Metropolitan Water District customer projects. I wanted to highlight for WB 32, Cal Water was working on a project to install a surge tank near WB 32, but the project did not move forward per Cal Water's request. And Cal Water had paid fees for Metropolitan Water District to review the project, but not all of the cost was expended. So as a result, Metropolitan provided a refund to West Basin for just over $17,000. And so those funds were in turn refunded to Cal Water as well. And then similarly for WB 41, this was also a project for Cal Water. They had requested a new service connection, but again, ultimately the project did not move forward. Cal Water also provided upfront fees for preliminary engineering and design services, but again, not all of the costs were spent, and so Metropolitan also provided a refund to West Basin for those costs, and that was just over $300,000, and so those fees were also refunded to Cal Water. Moving on to the Title 22 Purveyor Service Program, our water quality and compliance team developed consumer confidence reports for Inglewood and Manhattan Beach. And these are annual water quality reports for last year. And so these are reports that are used by Manhattan Beach and Inglewood to provide to their potable water customers. Go to the next slide, please. And this slide shows examples of those consumer confidence reports. So you can see the extensive list of constituents that are monitored.
See, just.
Oh, yeah, it was input as an example. So moving on to the next slide, please.
And if I may interrupt just for a moment, I think this item regarding the consumer confidence report is just illustrative of the type of customer service we're providing to our municipal agencies, in this case, City of Inglewood, City of Manhattan Beach, as all water purveyors are required to submit consumer confidence reports to their customers. And so we're able to assist, in this case, our municipal purveyors with that process. So I think it's really great that we're able to do so.
And this is our recycled water distribution update. So for July, this is the work that is implemented by our distribution operator at Infomark. And so for the month of July, we had one leak in the city of El Segundo at Washington Park. The leak was from a service line that was repaired without any issues. Infomark also collected a total of 84 water samples throughout the distribution system. They exercised 7 valves and responded to 546 pig alerts. And below were some photographs of some of the work locations that Infomark implemented. Moving on to the next slide. This is for our new recycled water connections. We're currently working with a total of 21 potential customers to connect to recycled water. We have been receiving more inquiries from potential customers that are interested in using recycled water, mainly because of the drought. But we're currently working with 4 customers that are in the construction phase. So for example, Taurus Technology Center, they're working on connecting 4 new buildings. We anticipate connecting one of those buildings before the end of this month. And then also wanted to highlight for the Intuit Dome, if you go to the next slide, please. We have been actively conducting site inspections for that site. We've been inspecting all the water utilities that need to be identified, and we ensure that they're not interconnected with recycled water. Moving on to the next slide. And this is our list of existing recycled water customers that have requested modifications to their either their recycled water or potable water system. We provide support for all the approvals with the Department of Public Health. So that list is growing. It's currently at 14. We actually received some additional requests, so we'll provide an update in the next month. But I just wanted to highlight a couple of the sites that we've been conducting site inspections. First one is Lusinger High School. So our staff have been working with them. They've been renovating their athletic fields. They're going to be replacing a lot of their turf with artificial turf, so it's actually going to be reducing the recycled water demand. But we do want to work with them to ensure that, again, there's no interconnections. Next slide. Went over Lusinger. The next slide after that is El Segundo High School. So we've also been working with them. They've been going through a renovation, several of their buildings. They're also replacing their irrigation system for their entire site, but we're also inspecting their potable water lines. As you can see in some of these photographs, these are some inspections with the Department of Public Health and the contractors that's implementing the work. And we anticipate that this site will be reconnected in October of this year. That concludes our update. Happy to answer any questions.
I heard that Carson is getting ready to start up with that huge area that once was going to be where the Rams were going to be playing. Yeah, now it's going to be back to being a big shopping center.
Yeah, we need to revisit that with the city. I haven't heard from them about that project. One project that we have been in discussions is the creek at Dominguez. Dominguez Creek. It's at the Victoria Golf Course.
Okay.
Yeah, that site will be. It's proposed to convert at least half of the golf course to kind of a sports and athletic type of development. And so we've been contacted by one of the engineers that they would like to extend the recycled water line to serve that new development.
Pretty good. That's been around for a long time. That site.
Right. Yeah, it was put on pause for a while.
Okay, very good.
I have a question. What is Intuit Dome?
Intuit Dome.
What is it?
That is going to be the Clippers.
Basketball.
Arena.
That's Clippers, okay. I didn't know that. I knew they were building an arena and it didn't go once you say Clippers. I didn't know it was called Intuit Dome. Thank you. Okay, with that, then if there's no other questions, I don't have any other comments.
No, thank you.
We will move on to the monthly engineering update and Mr. General Manager, if you can introduce that one.
Absolutely. We have our manager of engineering, Wendell Johnson, and his capable staff, Kevin Cullen and Orlando Rodriguez, here to support the presentation for today. So gentlemen, please take it away.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Director Williams. I'm here this afternoon to provide you an update of the Engineering Department's monthly update. If you could please turn to page 105 in your packet. We're going to move on to the next slide, which is 106. We're providing you, this is a new fiscal year. We've gone through the CIP process. I have all projects that were approved by the board listed in this table. So these are all projects for FY 22-23, and we have a status of the projects. For example, if we take a look at the first line, we have CIP number 122, which is the JMM Carson Phase 2 expansion project. It tells you the 2022-23 budget, which was $16,562,000. The total engineering estimate of the project, which is $27,241,241. It provides you with what has been spent to date, $11,919,000. And what has been spent in the fiscal year FY 22-23, in this case, approximately $800,000. It also provides you with a status. The project is in construction, and the expected completion date is June of 2023. It also provides you when was the most recent presentation presented to this body, and in this case, the most recent presentation was in the month of June at the E&O meeting. So if we go down to the next page, next slide. A couple things to point out. I'm gonna grab one of these projects random. Let's take a look at 173, and this is ECL Title 22 Filters Rehabilitation Replacement Project. It provides you with the budget information and the total estimated project cost and what has been spent to date. In this particular case, the status is pending the GM review. We had a GM review last Friday, and the general manager had some questions and asked for some clarifications to be done with the presentation. And we are in the process of making those modifications to the presentation, and we're expected to be in front of the E&O committee in September or October of this year. So at this point, I move down to the next page, and actually the next page after that, I have some highlighted projects that are under construction. I have Kevin Cullen here first to provide you with an update on the JMM Carson expansion, and I also have Orlando Rodriguez with me here today to provide you with update status on the decommissioning of the Brewer desalter.
Thanks, Wendell. Good afternoon, directors. Next slide, please. I'll be providing a brief update on our Juanita Melender McDonald Carson Regional Water Recycling Plant Phase 2 expansion project. This project is in the construction phase. In terms of schedule, we issued a notice to proceed on July 6th of last year. The contractual duration for the contractor is 660 days, and to date, about 390 days have elapsed, so about 60% of the schedule. In terms of construction costs, the base contract value was about $21 million. To date, the contractor has earned about $8.5 million, so about 40%. In terms of progress, as far as submittals and RFIs, kind of a measure of how well the construction team is operating. We've received 153 RFIs to date. We've processed 146. We're getting really good turnaround from our design engineering team and our construction management team. And same for submittals. We've received a total of 238 to date and have processed 236. So we're looking good. Next slide, please. I just want to highlight some progress photos for the committee here. The bulk of the progress on site the last month has been related to electrical duct banks and the coating that needs to occur on site. We have two areas of coating. On the right-hand side, you'll see vapor blasting occurring at our chemical storage area. Vapor blasting is a new process, for me at least. I'm used to seeing sand blasting. This vapor blasting uses 90% water instead of sand blasting, so it's much more clean. Not so much, so messy on site and can kind of contain the small amount of sand that is used.
Are they using recycled water for that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about the water. Is that potable water or?
So we are using plant industrial water, which is air gap potable water that's used for processes. But it is a relatively small amount of water that's used.
Just checking.
And then on the left-hand side, you'll see one of our larger duct banks on site. A whole bunch of 4-inch conduits there for some of the medium voltage equipment. So duct bank installation is ongoing. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay. Oh, there we go. If we could go back one now, apologies. Just highlight some ongoing electrical installation. So on the left-hand side, you'll see electrical manhole 3 being installed. You can see the contractor making the penetrations into the electrical manhole from the duct bank. And then on the right-hand side, you can see the connection to electrical building 99, where the contractor is installing the conduit pull boxes, which will allow for the wires to penetrate the building. Next slide, please.
Frozen?
Oh, it's exciting.
It's live on.
Sure. I'll go off the packet page. We're on packet page 113 here. The next picture that you will see when it pops up shortly here is the installation of duct bank 11. Just another duct bank installation. You can see it's being encased with red concrete to mark that there's electrical conduits below. And then on the right-hand side of packet page 113, you'll see our new exit gate that has been installed on the north side of our property. And we'll continue on to page 114 of the packet, where we will highlight some of the labor hours. As you might be familiar with, the Phase 2 expansion project is the last project associated with our project labor agreement. And it's been performing well. I think it's one of our best projects to date in terms of PLA. Right now, we have a local hire percentage right about 35%. The bulk of it is coming out of Division 1 currently. And also, I'll note that we are doing extraordinarily well in terms of apprenticeship hours. We're about 20% of the man hours being provided on site are coming from apprentices. And also in terms of at risk, we're at about 5.5% as well, which is above the goal of 5%. And then the last slide I'll highlight is on packet page 115, and it's a breakdown of those man hours by craft. And currently, the bulk of the hours are coming out of laborers, followed by carpenters and electricians.
I'd just like to add the comment that this is a really important component of this contract, especially when we talk about at-risk employment. And I think the term that I'm hearing is reentry, people who may have been formerly in contact with the criminal justice system and providing a pathway for them to essentially reenter, into the workforce and, obtain gainful employment. And so the relevance that I would point out at this moment would be as we look to pursue federal funding, in particular for large, infrastructure projects. A lot of that is emphasizing this kind of equity and diversity and work reentry type initiatives to qualify for federal funding. So I think the fact that we're able to do this in an effective manner speaks well for our prospects for meeting those goals under the infrastructure bill.
At this point, I'd be happy to take any questions. If there's no questions, I'll pass it over to Orlando.
No, thank you.
Go ahead, Orlando.
Thank you, Kevin. Good afternoon, Director. Please turn to page 116 of the agenda packet. So to start, NTP Service Project was issued on July 11th to the contractor. And as of today, we have removed some of the exterior piping as well as the interior piping inside the treatment building, concrete slabs on the exterior associated to some of the tanks that were removed, a concrete sump, the acid tank, a large discharge to waste tank, the decarbonator tower, and also some of the treatment equipment that's inside the building, including VFDs, membrane pressure vessels, pumps, some of the plastic drums that contain the chemicals, and also some miscellaneous electrical equipment not associated with the building's lighting system or whatnot. So I do want to update, here's an update to this. I do list some of the remaining items, but we have actually performed a lot of the pipe cap installation. What we did at this site is instead of actually trenching and removing the pipe at the exterior that basically is buried, we essentially cut it just below grade and installed pipe caps throughout the site. So that was completed last week. Also did some backfilling in terms of when we removed the concrete slabs, we did backfill and brought it to grade with the adjacent site. And then also installed some AC paving at the location of the acid tank. It was within the paved parking lot from the site. So we removed the slab, installed base, and then asphalt concrete. So that's actually been completed today. So there are some remaining items, including some of the metal siding installation that there are some pipe penetrations that went from the exterior to the interior of the building. So we are going to patch those up. So that's one some of the remaining items. So we're actually all in all closer to about 90% completion of this project. So next slide, please. So here on page 117 of the agenda packet, we did want to share some photos. I'll go ahead and start on the top left. These are kind of in chronological order going from left to right. At the top left is that large discharge to waste tank, about 20,000 gallons. So this photo was taken prior to the NTP date. And then the photo in the middle is kind of mid-July, about 2 weeks into the project. 1 week into the project. And then the photo to the far right is at the end of July, previous month, and then showing how basically the tank has been removed, the slab as well, and there is a hole that now has been basically backfilled and gravel set on top. So, and on the bottom left is the acid tank that I mentioned. As you see, it's there is a concrete retaining wall surrounding the tank, and then also adjacent to that is the asphalt parking lot on the site. Then in the middle photo is basically the beginning of the demolition of that, and then the photo at the bottom right is the kind of basically the condition once the slab wall was removed, and essentially that's actually a part of it. Now we basically backfilled that and installed base and paving so that work has been completed. Next slide, please. And here are additional pictures as well. I'll go ahead and start with the top left again. That is the decarbonator tower, and as you can see, and it's maybe a little bit hard to see, but there is some of the piping that's, I guess, on the exterior that essentially goes into the building itself. Middle photo is progress from that. We basically removed a lot of that piping. The decarbonator tower is still there, and then to the right, on the upper right, is essentially everything's been removed and demoed. So that's where we currently sit today. And then bottom left, here is a kind of a photo of the interior of the building. You see all the treatment equipment, pressure vessels, pumps, and so forth. Then you move on to the middle photo. A lot of that equipment is gone, and so forth. And we are removing some of the conduit electrical, a lot of the electrical really related to the treatment equipment. And we left the lighting system capability, HVAC intact. And then the bottom right is essentially the building empty. And we are doing some patchwork there and other miscellaneous repairs to the interior of the building. That's it. Any questions?
Director Williams, any questions?
No, thank you. I'll hold on to that. Thank you.
So how many more days before we finish?
We are, I would say, I think this week would be close to complete. The one remaining item really is the siding, the building penetrations. We did order the kind of metal siding to match the building, and it is back ordered unfortunately. So I think this week will essentially be complete with all the major items except for that one remaining item. So the goal is to leave everything completed. When those do arrive, come back and essentially patch the hole.
Cal Water's keeping the building. And Cal Water just, you give them the material and they'll take care of installing it. You might want to ask them.
Yeah.
So we can close the contract up.
We definitely could ask them that question.
Okay, so with that, we are done with our information calendar. And moving on to closed session, we don't have one today. The next item is director's comments on future agenda items. And there's no other directors here besides you, Director Williams. I don't know if you want to make any comments.
No, thank you. Just great reports and keep up the good work. And always keep in mind, speed.
Better than accuracy.
And
I don't have any additional comments, so we are adjourned.
All right, thank you, directors.
September 14th, 2022.
Get that gavel.
All right, well, thank you.
Greg,
Yes, sir.
you have one thing that kind of will.
Process.
Percent.